Welcome to English Tale, where emotions speak louder and English becomes natural. My name is Mia. I was 25 when I started working as a nurse at St. Jude's Medical Center in Boston. It wasn't just a job for me. It was my calling. I had always wanted to help people, to be the one who held someone's hand when the pain was too much, the one who offered comfort in a room full of fear. The hospital was busy, like any big city hospital, but there was something sacred about the work. The smell of antiseptic, the beeping of monitors, the quick steps of nurses moving from room to room. It was my world. I felt alive there, needed, strong. But nothing prepared me for the day I met him. It was a rainy Thursday morning. The sky was heavy, gray, and the kind of quiet sadness hung in the air that usually came with bad news. I was on my usual rounds in the oncology ward when I noticed a new patient. Room 314. That number would later haunt me. He was sitting up in bed, his face pale but striking. Dark wavy hair, thick lashes, and the kind of smile that made your chest tighten for reasons you couldn't explain. His chart read, Lucas R. Blackwell, 28 years old. Diagnosis, Stage 3, Hodgkin's lymphoma. He turned to me as I walked in and said, "Is this the part where you stab me with needles and tell me to be brave?" I laughed. "Only if you promise not to faint." "Deal," he said, grinning. That was how it started. In the days that followed, I learned more about Lucas. He was a photographer, had traveled the world capturing weddings, wildlife, street life. His pictures were full of life, irony, sorrow, and sometimes something raw and beautiful that made you pause. But what struck me most was how he never let the diagnosis define him. Lucas told jokes during chemo, made friends with every nurse on the floor, and kept a Polaroid camera with him. He took pictures of everyone. There's still a black and white photo of me pinned to the nurse's board. I looked tired, but happy, laughing mid-sentence, my hair a mess, holding a coffee in one hand and a stethoscope in the other. He captured people as they were, not as they pretended to be. "I don't want cancer to be the end of my story," he told me one night as we sat near the window watching the rain blur the city lights. "I want it to be a turning point, like in the movies, when everything falls apart before it gets better." I nodded, though my throat tightened. "You'll get better." He smiled softly. "Even if I don't, you've already made it worth it." That night, I couldn't sleep. Over time, I found myself lingering longer in room 314. I wasn't just his nurse. I was his friend. Or at least, that's what I told myself. The way my heart beat faster when he touched my hand. Or how I'd feel, a little lighter after hearing his voice. I tried to ignore those things. It wasn't professional. I had a job, a responsibility. But feelings don't ask for permission. He would tell me stories. About India, Morocco, Paris. About a boy who once wanted to be an astronaut, then a writer, then a man who chased the world with a lens. He showed me photos of children laughing in the slums of Mumbai, a bride wiping away a tear as she danced with her father, an old man feeding pigeons in Venice. "You see," he whispered once, "there's beauty in everything, even sadness. You just have to look for it." There was something magnetic about him. He wasn't pretending to be strong. He was strong, not in the way that movies show, but in the way that mattered. He showed up every day. He endured pain without bitterness. He made others laugh when he was barely holding on. And in between the chemo, the nausea, the bad scans, and the endless blood tests, he lived. Sometimes late at night, when the ward quieted down and the fluorescent lights dimmed to a softer glow, we would sit together in silence. He would hold my hand, and I wouldn't pull away. I didn't know what we were. Nurse and patient, friends, something else. But I knew it was real. Then came the night everything changed. Lucas had a seizure. It was sudden. One moment he was joking with me about how hospital food was secretly part of the treatment plan. It's so bad your body forgets about the cancer. And the next, he collapsed. I screamed for help, my hands shaking as I hit the emergency button. They moved him to the ICU. Hours passed in a blur. I sat outside the room, tears streaking down my face, praying to every god I didn't believe in. The doctor said the cancer had spread to his brain. They started a new treatment. Stronger, more aggressive. I watched as he changed. The sparkin. His eyes dimmed. His hands, once so steady behind a camera, trembled now. He couldn't eat, could barely talk. And yet he would smile when he saw me. Whisper, "You still make this place feel like home." I tried to stay professional. But one night, when I thought he was asleep, I sat beside him and whispered, "I think I'm falling in love with you." His eyes opened slowly. He was awake. "I was hoping you'd say that," he murmured. "Because I already did." From that moment, everything changed. We didn't kiss. We couldn't. He was too weak. But we didn't need to. The love between us wasn't rushed or desperate. It was quiet, like a song only we could hear. I brought in fairy lights and hung them around his bed. I played his favorite songs on a small speaker. I read to him when he couldn't keep his eyes open. I held his hand when the pain was unbearable. He once said, "I wish I had more time. With you. With life." I whispered, "Then let's make every second count." Lucas had good days and bad. Some days he'd laugh and tease me. Others, he'd stare out the window in silence, lost in thought. He knew the end was near. So did I. But we never said it out loud. Instead, we made a list. A bucket list of sorts. Silly things we could do even from his hospital bed. We had a picnic in his room with homemade sandwiches and fake grass under our feet. We watched the sun rise together from the rooftop. I snuck in his dog, Max, one Sunday morning. The joy on his face. God, I'll never forget it. But time is cruel. And cancer is crueler. One night, I came in and found him unconscious. He had slipped into a coma. They said he might not wake up. I stayed by his side, reading his favorite poetry, holding his hand, telling him stories about us. And then, on the 5th day, he opened his eyes. Barely. "Mia," he whispered. "Take a picture. Of this." I was confused. "What do you mean?" "Of us. Right now. Not posed. Just real." I grabbed his Polaroid and snapped a photo. It came out blurry, with soft light glowing around us. I'm holding his hand, eyes filled with tears. He's looking at me with the faintest smile. This is the best one," he whispered. And then his eyes closed, and he was gone. I don't remember much of what happened immediately after Lucas passed. Everything became a blur. Nurses moved in and out of the room like shadows. Someone gently guided me to a chair. I was shaking. Not from shock. No, it wasn't that. It was grief in its purest form. Raw, paralyzing, consuming. I sat there, holding his lifeless hand, wishing with everything in me that he'd wake up and call it a bad joke. But he didn't. He was gone. The world felt quieter. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. I walked the hospital halls until sunrise, clutching the photograph he'd asked me to take. The image was slightly off-center, the lighting uneven. But it was perfect. He had known that moment mattered, and somehow he gave me one last gift, our goodbye frozen in time. The next few weeks were unbearable. I'd walk into the oncology wing and instinctively glance at room 314. It felt wrong that someone else would eventually occupy that space, that the bed he once made jokes in would soon carry someone else's pain. His absence was a loud, gaping silence. People told me to take time off. I refused. Working helped me breathe. I poured myself into my patients, offering them the same comfort I had once given him. But part of me was hollow. A shell. Lucas's funeral was held at a small chapel near the coast. He had left instructions for a simple service, with only close friends and family. And me. I hadn't realized how much he had spoken about me until I arrived, and his mother embraced me with trembling arms. "You were the light in his darkest days," she whispered. "He said you taught him how to love, even when he was dying." I couldn't hold back the tears. They scattered his ashes on the beach he loved as a boy. The sky was a soft pastel that day, pinks and blues melting into the waves. I stood barefoot, in the sand, holding Max, his dog, who whimpered and refused to leave the spot where Lucas's ashes drifted out into the sea. I didn't say much, just one sentence. "I'll carry you with me, always," and I meant it. Months passed, seasons changed, time, as it does, moved on. I didn't. I tried dating again. Friends set me up, coworkers encouraged me. But I couldn't bring myself to feel anything. Everyone I met felt temporary, like background characters in a story that had already ended. But something began to shift when I found an envelope tucked inside an old book Lucas had given me. It was addressed to me. In his handwriting, Mia. "If you're reading this, it means I'm not around anymore. I'm sorry. I really thought I'd have more time, but if there's one thing I've learned, it's that time isn't something we can control. I want to say thank you. For everything. For seeing me, not just the sickness. For loving me without conditions. For being my home when everything else fell apart. You gave me joy when I thought I'd forgotten how to feel it. You reminded me of beauty, of hope, of what it means to be truly alive. Please don't stop living just because I had to leave. Don't let grief become your forever. Love, again, laugh again, and take pictures, lots of them. Because one day, someone will want to remember you the way I remember you now. Eyes full of light, heart wide open. Pess. Check the back of the photo. I fumbled for the Polaroid, the one I'd kept beside my bed since he passed. I turned it over. There, in shaky writing, it said, "This is what love looks like. Don't forget it." I broke down, sobbing like I hadn't since the day he left. But it wasn't just sadness. It was release, healing, a floodgate opening. Eventually, I did begin to live again. It was slow, like learning to walk after a terrible fall. But step by step, I made progress. I started taking photography classes on weekends, using Lucas's old camera, which his mom had gifted me. It felt like he was guiding me through the lens, whispering reminders to look for the beauty in ordinary things. I volunteered with cancer patients, especially young adults. I told them stories, his stories. I shared the love he gave me, hoping it would reach those who needed it most. I even adopted Max officially. That dog became my shadow, my comfort, and in a way, the last living piece of Lucas I could hold on to. Year later, I visited all the places he had talked about: Morocco, India, Paris. I stood on the streets he once walked, capturing life through my own lens now. I didn't go to chase closure. I went to honor him. And in doing so, I found myself. 1. Afternoon, while walking through a quiet Parisian alley, I met a man who asked me to take his photo. His name was Julian. He was soft-spoken, gentle, and carried the kind of sadness in his eyes that I recognized instantly. We ended up sitting on a bench for hours, talking like old souls who had known each other before. I told him about Lucas, about how love can arrive in the most unexpected places, and how sometimes the deepest connections come when we're least ready for them. He smiled and said, "Maybe love doesn't die. Maybe it just changes form." That sentence stayed with me. I won't tell you that I stopped missing Lucas. I never will. He's part of my story now, stitched into every heartbeat, every tear, every laugh. But I did learn to live with the grief, not under it. Love doesn't always end in forever. Sometimes it ends in a hospital bed with fairy lights and silent tears. And sometimes that's enough. Lucas taught me that life isn't about how long we live, but how deeply we love. And for a short while, I got to experience the kind of love that poets write about, the kind that changes you forever. So I keep his photo close, I keep my heart open, and I keep living, because that's what he would have wanted.